I never expected her to remember my name, let alone everything else. It started the way most unremarkable afternoons do, me waiting for the dryer to stop its lazy spin at the laundromat near my apartment. The hum filled the room, steady and dull, broken only by the occasional metallic click when a zipper hit the glass. I'd buried myself in my phone, pretending to scroll, though my thumb hadn't moved for minutes. That's when I heard her voice. "Your basket's tipping over." I looked up. She was standing near the folding table, her hand resting lightly against a pile of her own laundry. White cotton, neatly stacked, the kind of order that made my wrinkled t-shirts look like something dragged through a storm. "Oh, thanks," I muttered, righting the basket. She smiled, small but knowing. "My friend's mom. Mrs. Hayes." Though I'd heard her first name 100 times when I was a kid hanging around their house, it never felt like mine to use. She was always just his mom. The woman who brought out lemonade in tall glasses, who scolded us gently for slamming doors, who laughed too loudly at sitcom reruns. Now she stood here, folding pillowcases with precise movements, like every crease mattered. "You live nearby?" she asked. "2 blocks," I said. "Place with the peeling shutters." Her mouth tilted, amused. "Still blue?" I blinked. She remembered. Not just me, but the house, the shutters, details no one else cared to notice. "Yeah," I said. "Still blue." For a while, we folded in silence. I became hyper-aware of the way her hands smoothed fabric, the way she pressed each line flat with her palm before stacking it. I caught myself glancing down at them too often, then quickly back to my own pile as though caught stealing something. She broke the quiet. "You always did wear through socks fast." It was such a strange, ordinary thing to say, but it landed heavier than I expected. She remembered that too. I almost laughed, but instead, I just shrugged. "Guess some things don't change." Her eyes flicked toward mine, and for a moment, it felt like the hum of the dryers dimmed. Not gone, but softer, like the whole place was listening in. I busied myself with folding a faded hoodie. My fingers fumbled at the sleeves, clumsy. I thought about all the texts I hadn't sent lately, the ones to old friends that stopped midway, unsent because I couldn't think of a reason why they'd want to hear from me. And yet here was someone who remembered socks, shutters, things I didn't think mattered. She placed a stack of towels in her basket, then hesitated, smoothing the top towel twice before letting go. "Your friend's away at college," she said. Not a question, just a fact. "Yeah." I cleared my throat. "Haven't talked much since he left." She nodded like she understood more than I was saying. The hum of the dryers stretched between us again, loud this time. When my machine buzzed, I gathered my things too quickly, shoving shirts into my basket without folding. I didn't want her to see the heat rising in my face. As I lifted the basket, she spoke again, quieter this time. "You know," she said, almost like it wasn't meant for me, "he won't know, if you don't tell." I froze. My grip tightened on the basket's plastic handle. I wanted to ask tell what, but the words lodged in my throat. When I finally glanced back, she was already turning away, slipping a sweater over her arm, her expression unreadable. I left the laundromat with a basket half full of wrinkled clothes, the echo of her voice folding itself into the corners of my thoughts, sharper than any crease I'd seen her make. And that night, when I checked my phone, there was a new message. From her. The message was simple: "You forgot your hoodie. I'll leave it by the porch if you want to swing by." I stared at it for too long, thumb hovering over the keyboard, typing out thanks and then erasing it, typing be right there and erasing that too. In the end, I sent nothing, just showed up 20 minutes later, heart beating too fast for such a small excuse. Her porch light spilled across the steps, soft yellow against the dark. The hoodie was folded neatly on the railing, but she opened the door before I could grab it. "You're quick," she said, like she'd been waiting. I scratched the back of my neck. Didn't want it to wrinkle more. She gave a small smile, stepped back, and said, "Tea?" Inside, the house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something warm, lavender, maybe. I'd been here 100 times growing up, but it felt different now, quieter. The photos on the wall hadn't changed, family vacations, my friend's awkward middle school grin. I tried not to look too long at any of them. She set 2 mugs on the table, steam curling between us. "Still take it plain?" That stopped me. "You remembered?" She shrugged, almost embarrassed. "Some things stick." We sat in silence, the clock ticking louder than it had any right to. She traced the rim of her mug with her thumb, not looking at me when she said, "It gets quiet when you're older." Too quiet sometimes. I wanted to ask if she meant since the divorce, something my friend mentioned once in passing, but the question caught in my throat. Instead, I said, "Yeah. Feels like that sometimes already." Her eyes flicked up at me then, surprised. Maybe she expected me to fill the silence with something light, something casual. But I didn't have that in me tonight. "You're 22, she said softly, like it should mean I couldn't possibly understand. "Loneliness doesn't check IDs, I muttered before I could stop myself. That made her laugh, brief and low, and she shook her head. But she didn't argue. We stayed like that a while, sipping tea that went cold faster than either of us drank it. My gaze kept slipping to her hands again, how steady they were, even when she wasn't aware of it. I wondered what it would feel like if those hands ever. I caught myself, heat rising to my face. This was dangerous. This was stupid. This was my friend's mom. Still, when she stood to rinse her cup, I found myself standing too, reaching instinctively for the plate she carried. Our fingers brushed when she handed it over. It was nothing, just a clumsy overlap of movement. But she paused, only for a second, long enough for me to feel it wasn't entirely accidental. Later, walking home with my hoodie under my arm, I replayed that single touch in my head until it blurred with imagined versions of what it could have meant. I don't know why that moment stayed with me, maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next time I saw her, it wasn't planned. I was jogging past her street when she stepped out onto the porch, tugging at a bag of groceries. Paper thin, about to split. "Hey," I slowed, pulled my earbuds out. "Need a hand?" She hesitated, like weighing whether it would mean something if she said yes. Then she nodded. "If you don't mind." I carried the bag inside. Too heavy for one, too light for two, awkward in my arms. The kitchen was the same as I remembered. Sun-faded curtains, the hum of the old fridge, everything familiar and suddenly not. She set down her own bag, brushing hair out of her face. "Thanks. I didn't think I bought that much." "You didn't," I said. "They just pack it bad." A small laugh. But then silence, the kind that stretched. I stood there too long, not moving toward the door. "Want water?" she asked. I nodded. She poured 2 glasses. Our hands almost touched again when she passed one over. Almost. It was quiet, too quiet, until footsteps sounded on the porch. My chest tightened. The door swung open. Her daughter, my friend's younger sister, walked in, phone in hand. "Mom, I'll be late tonight, oh." She stopped mid-step when she saw me. "Hey." "Hey," I muttered. My voice cracked like I hadn't used it in days. "Mrs. Hayes, no," she smoothed it over, quick. "He was just helping with groceries." The girl gave me a look. Not suspicious. Just curious. Then she disappeared upstairs, the creak of the steps dragging out every second. I set the glass down. I should, yeah. Her answer came too fast. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I moved toward the door, but something held me there, like gravity tugging from the wrong direction. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, not closed off, just steadying herself. You've been around more, she said quietly. Sorry, I started. If it's, no, she cut me off, softer this time. It's just, people notice things. Quicker than you think. Her words hit heavier than I expected. Because she wasn't wrong. And because she hadn't asked me to stop. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat locked. So I stood there, shifting from one foot to the other, watching her fingers tighten on the edge of the counter, white-knuckled. Maybe I should, I began. Maybe you should, she echoed, but her voice didn't sound convinced. The silence between us swelled, full of things neither of us said. I stepped closer without meaning to, close enough to see the fine lines at the corner of her eyes, the way her breath caught before she steadied it. My hand brushed the doorframe, hers rested on the counter. A foot of space. Maybe less. If she looked up, if I didn't pull back, but the floor creaked upstairs, breaking it. I exhaled, sharp. She turned away first. I left without another word, the taste of almost still heavy on my tongue. It was late afternoon when I saw her again, sitting on the park bench near the corner store. A paper bag at her side, untouched. She didn't notice me at first, eyes fixed on the trees overhead, where the branches shifted with the wind. I almost kept walking. Almost. But something about the way she sat, shoulders slightly hunched, like she was carrying more than she wanted anyone to see, pulled me over. Mind if I sit? She glanced up, surprised, then gave a half shrug. It's a public bench. I sat anyway. The silence pressed in. A kid's laughter carried across the park, a dog barked at nothing. Ordinary sounds, but they made the space between us louder. You looked far away, I said finally. She exhaled, slow. Just thinking. I waited, hoping she'd go on. She didn't. Instead, she asked, you talk to him much anymore? My son? The question landed harder than it should. I stared at the ground, scuffing my shoe against the dirt. Not really. We've drifted. She nodded, like she already knew. He used to talk about you a lot. You were close. Yeah. The word felt thin. A pause stretched, long enough that I felt my chest tighten. Then, quieter, sometimes I think you come by because he's not here. Her voice trembled at the edge of that thought. My stomach nodded. That's not, I started, but stopped. Because maybe it was. Maybe part of it was. She looked at me then, really looked. Do you know what it feels like, when someone finally notices you again? After years of just being background? I swallowed hard. My throat felt dry. I notice, I said. It came out rougher than I meant. Her eyes softened, painfully, achingly. She turned away too quickly, blinking at nothing. This is wrong, she whispered. Not to me, exactly. More like to the air. I know. My hands clenched on my knees. I know. We sat there, breathing unevenly. A couple walked past us, chatting, oblivious. Finally, she said, sometimes I wonder if you're just lonely. And I'm just convenient. Her words hit deeper than she could know. Because I had asked myself the same thing, lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling. That's not, I cut myself off again. My jaw worked, but no words came out. She turned her face toward me. Close now. Too close. I could see the faint freckles across her cheekbones, the slight quiver at the corner of her mouth. If we, she trailed off. Shook her head. No. Forget it. But the unfinished sentence hung between us, heavier than anything spoken. I leaned forward a fraction before pulling myself back. Her hand was resting on the bench, inches from mine. My fingers twitched, aching to close the space. Instead, I asked, voice low, "Do you want me to stop coming by?" Her answer didn't come. Just silence. A silence that felt more like a question than anything I could have asked. After that day on the bench, I didn't see her for a week. At first, I told myself it was coincidence. Different errands, different hours. But the laundromat felt emptier than usual, and the porch light on her house stayed off. Even when I passed her street, the curtains were drawn. On the fourth day, I almost knocked. Stood at the bottom of her steps, hoodie zipped against the chill. My hand hovered halfway to the railing before I let it fall. The next afternoon, I saw her at the grocery store. She was at the register, hair pulled back, her cart already empty. I thought she'd glance up, maybe smile. Instead, her eyes slid right past me, fixed on the cashier's hands bagging oranges. "Hey," I said softly. She froze, not visibly, but in that small way people do, when their breath stumbles. Then she turned, gave a polite smile I hadn't seen in months. "Hi." Like we were strangers. Like all the silences we'd shared had evaporated. "How've you been?" I asked. "Busy," she said. The word felt rehearsed. And then she left, walking briskly, not looking back. I stopped going to the park. Stopped detouring past her street. Even the laundromat felt wrong. I drove 20 minutes out to a place I didn't know, sitting in my car while the dryers spun. Every time my phone buzzed, I thought it might be her. It never was. On the 7th night, I almost texted. I typed, "Did I do something?" Then deleted it. Typed, "I miss talking to you." Deleted that too. Finally, just, "Hope you're okay." I stared at the 3 words until the screen dimmed. Then I locked the phone and slid it under my pillow, like hiding it made it less real. The next morning, I ran into her son. My friend. He was back from college for the weekend, standing in line at the coffee shop like nothing had changed. "Man, it's been forever," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Yeah," I managed. We talked, surface-level things, safe things. Classes, jobs, weather. But when he mentioned home, his tone softened. "Mom's been different lately. Quieter." "I don't know. I worry sometimes." My stomach twisted. Words hovered on my tongue, but I bit them back so hard it hurt. "When we parted," he said, "you should come by. She'd like that." I nodded. Lied. "Yeah. Maybe I will." That night, I sat in my car outside her house, headlights off. Her porch light was on again, but the curtains were closed. I imagined knocking. I imagined her opening the door, her eyes tired but softening when she saw me. Instead, I stayed in the car until the engine ticked cool. Then I drove away. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. It was raining the night I finally went back. Not hard, just steady, the kind that soaks you through if you stand in it too long. I walked anyway, hood up, hands shoved deep into my pockets, until I found myself on her porch. The light was on. I almost turned away, but then the door opened. She must have heard the steps. She froze when she saw me, hair loose, sweater sleeves pushed up, like she'd been cleaning or cooking. "You're drenched," she said finally. "Yeah." My voice cracked. "Sorry." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in." Inside, the kitchen smelled faintly of coffee, though the pot was empty. I stood awkwardly by the counter, dripping onto the tile. She grabbed a towel from a drawer, handed it over without meeting my eyes. "Thanks," I muttered, drying my face. For a while, neither of us spoke. Just the rain on the roof, steady and relentless. Finally, she leaned against the counter, arms folded tight. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Not harsh, not even firm. Just tired. I know. My chest ached. But I couldn't keep not saying anything. Her eyes flicked up, wary. "Saying what?" I swallowed. My throat felt raw. "That I think about you. More than I should. And I don't know if that's loneliness talking, or if it's real, but," I broke off, shaking my head. "It doesn't go away." She closed her eyes, like the words were both a relief and a weight. When she opened them, they shone damp in the kitchen light. "You're too young," she whispered. "I'm not a kid. You're my son's friend." "I know." My voice cracked again, softer this time. "But that doesn't change how it feels." Her hand gripped the counter, white-knuckled. For a moment, I thought she might tell me to leave, might end it right there. Instead, she exhaled and said, "Do you know what scares me? That I want to believe you." The words hit harder than anything else. My breath stalled. I stepped closer, slow. Close enough to hear her uneven breathing, close enough to see the trembling in her jaw. But I didn't reach for her. "If you tell me to go," I said quietly, "I'll go. Just tell me." The rain filled the silence. Seconds stretched. Finally, she looked at me, really looked. Her lips parted, then closed again. She shook her head slightly, as if no answer could make this clean. Instead, she reached out. Just a small gesture, her fingers brushed my wrist, light, tentative. But it was enough to unravel me. I held still, not wanting to break it. Not wanting to make it more than it was. Her voice was barely audible. "Okay." That was all. No promises, no declarations. Just that one word, simple and human. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Weeks passed. Life didn't change all at once. It shifted in small, nearly invisible ways. I still did laundry on Sundays, but I stopped driving out to the other laundromat. Hers felt less heavy now, even when we weren't talking. Sometimes she was there, sometimes not. When she was, we folded in silence, the hum of dryers filling in the gaps. But the silence didn't press the same way anymore. One morning, I caught her watching me smooth out a shirt I never used to bother folding. She tilted her head, amused. "Learning," she said simply. I shrugged. "Had a good teacher." Her smile lingered just a second too long. She never asked for more, and I never pressed. But the small rituals returned, each carrying more weight than I let myself say aloud. Tea on her kitchen table. Black coffee left for me when I came by early to fix a loose shutter. A text at 8:47 a.m. that just said, "Don't forget your hoodie," even when I hadn't left one behind. Sometimes we sat on the park bench again, the same one where everything nearly cracked open. This time, though, we didn't hover at the edge of words we couldn't say. She told me about her garden plans. I told her about the new job I was chasing. Ordinary things, but colored by the unspoken knowledge that we were both choosing to stay. Her son came home for a weekend and invited me over, like old times. We sat around the living room, watching a movie that none of us really paid attention to. When he stepped out to take a call, I caught her eyes across the room. Just a flicker, but it was enough. Not guilt, not fear. Just a quiet acknowledgement. We never had a moment where everything was declared. No sudden kiss in the rain, no breathless confessions. It was more like finding a rhythm, something steady. She'd hand me a mug of tea, fingers brushing mine without hesitation now. I'd linger a little longer before leaving, and she didn't look away. One evening, folding towels at her kitchen counter, she said it without really saying it, "You're here a lot. Want me to stop?" I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Just smoothed the towel flat, her hand moving slow, deliberate. Then she looked up, the faintest smile on her lips. No, that was it. No fireworks. Just the permission to stay. Looking back, I don't remember the exact day it stopped feeling fragile. It wasn't a sudden change. More like the steady build of trust, the way silence softened into comfort instead of tension. And maybe that's what love really is, nothing grand, nothing cinematic. Just a series of small choices, day after day, until one morning you realize you've built a life inside them. When I think of us now, I don't think of that first laundromat or the bench in the park. I think of a single, ordinary moment, sitting at her kitchen table, steam rising from 2 mugs, her hand resting casually near mine. And the way, without even looking up, she slid her finger across the table until it touched mine, like it had always belonged there. That was our language. Quiet. Steady. Enough.